Good morning, everyone. Bom dia, and a warm welcome to this session on Gandhian perspective on sustainable development. His Excellency Ambassador of India to Brazil, Mr. Suresh K. Reddy, President ISAE, Mr. Norman Philo, Honorable Consul General of India to Brazil, Mr. Amit Kumar Mishra, distinguished guests, speakers, and the participants. It's an honor to be able to start the celebration of the 150 years of Mahatma Gandhi with this seminal event that we are having on a very apt topic during these times of sustainability. World over, we've been discussing about various areas and prospects of sustainable development. So having to understand and know Gandhian views and Gandhian perspective on this important topic, I think is very important. I am Pooja Kaushik, Director, Swami Vivekanand Cultural Center, and the Consulate General of India is collaborating for this particular event with the ISAE Business School, which is in Curitiba, Brazil. For this event, we've had some very known and very well-known speakers from India and also from Brazil to be able to understand, this important topic. Just to brief you about what the Cultural Center and the Consulate has been doing in the last 1 year of celebration of 150 years of Mahatma Gandhi. There are various events that we've had to celebrate and also to propagate the philosophies and teachings of Mahatma Gandhi here in Brazil. We started with a peace walk in 2018, and it was basically to promote the idea of peace and non-violence here in Brazil. Followed by various events, we had tree plantations. We did a cycling for peace. Then we had various exhibitions which traveled from various universities here in Brazil. Honorable Consul General addressed the university students at various levels on various occasions to talk about and to propagate the ideas of Mahatma Gandhi. This year was also important as one of the Gandhian scholars from Brazil was awarded the Padma Shri, which is the fourth highest civilian award in India. So this year has really been important, when it comes to really promoting and propagating the ideas of Mahatma Gandhi. And I really feel that the event today is going to be a step further in this direction. So without taking much time and without any delay, I would now request the Honorable Ambassador of India to Brazil to kindly address us. We're honored to have him here with us today because he's recently joined, and I think this is really his first event that he's having, on the virtual platform, addressing students and people, and it's great that it's something to do with Mahatma Gandhi. So before I invite Honorable Ambassador to address us, I would just want to give you a brief about him. Ambassador Suresh Reddy has assumed charge as Ambassador of India to the Federative Republic of Brazil on 13th of December 2020. He's had a distinguished career since he joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1991. He has served in Cairo, Muscat, Abu Dhabi, and Islamabad, and later as India's ambassador to Iraq and ASEAN. Ambassador Reddy also served as a special envoy of Government of India to Iraq from June to December 2014, addressing all issues related to safety, welfare, and evacuation of Indian nationals. In the ministry, he's had sensitive and crucial positions, including as head of office of Minister of State for External Affairs, and has been engaged with the neighboring countries of Bangladesh, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and Maldives in different capacities, including as desk officer, director, and director general. He has established and headed the first ASEAN multilateral economic relations division and in that capacity was instrumental in establishing the BIMSTEC Secretariat while also looking after ASEAN, ACD, APEC-related issues. Ambassador Reddy headed the Multilateral Economic Relations Divisions in the Ministry of External Affairs from December 2018 to January 2020 and was India's source Sherpa to G20, G7, BRICS, and ABSA. Since January 2020, he's been deputed as the Additional Secretary Europe. Ambassador Reddy was coordinating India's engagement with Europe and Central Asia. So thank you so much, Ambassador Reddy, for joining us. So I would now request him to join us on screen, please.
Here the wide variety of activities which the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center has been organizing. My compliments to you and your team for the same. I think I should now start by saying Bonjia and Namaskar. It's really a pleasure to be here. And as correctly pointed out by Dr. Pooja, this is my first public interaction. For me, it was a matter of privilege and honor that when I first arrived in Brasilia, on Monday, I went and paid my respects to the bust of Mahatma Gandhi, and then I reached the office. Because he really represents India, he represents what India stands for, and his values are what shapes us and guides us today also. I would like to thank Consul General Mr. Amit Mishra for this initiative and ISAE Business School Kurshiba for the support and participation in the webinar on Gandhi's perspective on sustainable development. I had visited Kurshiba last year and must say was impressed with the beauty of the city and the vibrant economy. We also had the pleasure of meeting the governor who shared his vision on Kurshiba becoming a smart city. Indeed, the challenge that confronted him is the challenge that confronts all of us today, both the leaders and the people. How do we provide for the people today while ensuring that we leave behind a world for our future generations also? I would also like to greet and extend a warm welcome to the eminent speakers, Senhor Norman, Dr. Rajini Bakshi, Dr. Mahesh Sharma, Dr. Nirja Mattu, and Senhor Leandro for joining us today. As we celebrate 150 years of Mahatma Gandhi, it is worth remembering that it was only 12 years ago the United Nations declared 2nd October as International Day of Non-Violence. It is equally significant that only in 2015 the countries of the world united and adopted the SDG 2030 agenda under the tagline, "Leave no one behind." Indeed, the connection between the two events is noteworthy, for Mahatma Gandhi has been speaking up for the weaker sections of the society, noting that the real development is when the weakest and the most vulnerable also realize the same level of development. The pandemic we see around us today, COVID, has not only reshaped the world, but has also made us realize how fragile our concept of development and progress has been. Indeed, the most developed world and the least developed world have faced similar challenges under the pandemic and suffered similar consequences. Here, we need to recall what Mahatma Gandhi said, that poverty is the worst form of violence. The pandemic has only made us realize the value of those words. Today, the world and the United Nations are speaking in one voice about the need for sustainable development, sharing concerns over climate change, emphasizing circular economy, and promoting green economy. Indeed, it is Mahatma Gandhi who has been urging moderation in consumption, noting that what we do today is our future. He has been a visionary in observing that the natural resources are an inheritance from our ancestors, and are a loan from our future generations. Here, I would like to inform that India, while committed to a sustainable path to prosperity, is also rooted firmly in its commitment to the future. India's national plans are ambitious and purposeful. We are focusing on the basics: housing, power, water, and sanitation for all, important not just for the welfare, but also for human dignity. As India's ancient saying goes, we look at the world as one family. India represents a culture that calls our planet as Mother Earth, and we see all of us as her children. Essentially, we call it the Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. The world is one family. The life he lived by experimenting explains Gandhiji's perspective of sustainability. His idea of the spinning wheel was a model of self sufficiency and independence and dignified life. He believed that nature has enough to satisfy everyone's needs, but not one man's greed. Mahatma Gandhi was truly a citizen of the world, and I am not surprised that people of Brazil also appreciate, respect, and welcome his ideals and philosophy. You would be happy to know that there are 4 statues of Mahatma Gandhi in Brazil, spread across different governorates. I am also glad to inform that the 5th statue is going to be installed soon in Salvador. I would again like to thank the distinguished panelists and the audience for joining us in what is promising to be an excellent exchange of views and sharing of perspectives on sustainable development and the continued relevance of Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy and approach to development. Thank you. I regret that I will have to leave shortly for another meeting, but my colleague, Mr. Amit Kumar Mishra, the Distinguished Consul General, would be continuing to join in the sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for addressing us. And yes, we hope that we continue to have more such cultural events, and we'll have you to participate in these events more often now. I would now request President ISAE, Mr. Norman Philo, to kindly address us, and maybe he would like to throw some light on what he thinks about Mahatma Gandhi and the idea of having this entire event. Over to Mr. Norman, please.
Motive partners in the promotion of this event, and I would like to emphasize the importance of the speech from our ambassador. I think that the partnership between Brazil and India has a big field to establish these events, the promotion, the interaction, and I think that it is most important is to create the conditions to integrate in the education. I believe that the perspective, the Gandhi, with our development, the sustainable development, I think that it is a very, very important initiative for several reasons. The first one is that Mahatma Gandhi is a very important leader for us. Considering what our ambassador, Suraj, mentioned, emphasize the importance of this integration. We had some time ago the speech with our Consul General, Mr. Amit Kumar Mishra. Mr. Amit, when we established the first contact, we were defined that we don't have time to lose. We have to emphasize the importance to start to work to create a very important event and to reinforce the importance of the perspective of Mahatma Gandhi in these principles, in this idea, and how to create this development in basis of sustainability. And this is the principle that we have to adopt since we created ISAE FGV 26 years ago. And we have this idea to establish this cooperation. And we had already participated in India, and now we are with a Brazilian student in Oriental program that in the next probably the next week, we will have a cooperation with the Brazilian and students, professors, and researchers that will acting with the Indian professors, students, and researchers. This is the base of the rich integration. And we are believing that this reason is what justify the presence of the speakers and the participants that we have today participating in this event. So I think that this event can be a very, very, very important for us. And I would like to say, to welcome all the participants, and I would like that we can create a platform of success inspired by Mahatma Gandhi and creating a sustainable platform to with another program that we are establishing now. So I would like to desire success for you, and once again to greet the participation with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Norman. Yes, indeed, I think this is the first event, and we're going to continue and have many more such activities with the university. So now over to our speakers. So I'm now going to hand over, everyone to Gustavo. Gustavo is the coordinator of the International Relations Department at ISAE, and he's been kind to help me coordinate this entire thing. So, and he will be moderating today's talks. So over to Mr. Gustavo now.
Good morning, everyone. So first of all, I would like to thank you, Mr. Ambassador Suresh, for so kind words, and also the General Counsel of India in Brazil, Mr. Amit, for this so quick partnership and interaction, and of course for Puja for so kind organization and all support to happen this, to make this happen. Well, as Professor Norman mentioned it, for ISAE, it's a pleasure to host an event like this that crosses a relation of friendship of so many years with India. In the past few years, our institution, ISAE, has come very close to the country in multiple initiatives and projects, as Norman mentioned, which makes this webinar today something of great happiness. Well, During this strange year where the whole world has been experiencing extremely complex problems, we are organizing a series of monthly webinars. It's called the ISAE Talks, to discuss about relevant topics related to the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. This is part of a strategy, and what we believe is that's the main goal of education: disseminate knowledge to transform the leaders of tomorrow. Today, we have in this special edition to talk about sustainable leadership from the perspective of Mahatma Gandhi. As you know, Gandhi was a pacifist leader who appropriated the principles of sustainability even before the name sustainability. That is, it's an example of balance, something that is really necessary in this dynamic world that we're facing today. Well, some practical questions related to this webinar. So if anyone have some question, you can just put on the chat on Facebook or YouTube so we can moderate later to the participants. So keep in contact and please address your questions to our speakers. Without further comments, I would like to initially thank you all our panelists and invite Dr. Mesh Sharma, First Chancellor of Mahatma Gandhi Central University, to talk about his perspective related to the topic of today. Dr. Mesh.
Dear Ambassador Suresh Reddy, ISAE President Professor Norman, and dear friends, Namaskar to all. I'm thankful to organizers for giving me this wonderful opportunity to interact with this enlightened audience, especially the young thinkers of Brazil, on a historical occasion of Gandhi 150 celebrations. I'm pleased to participate in this event at ISAE Business School in Brazil, as you are committed for sustainable development. My generation has a very positive image of Brazil as the host to first Rio Earth Summit in 1972. India has a very strong bond with the people of Brazil in many ways. But first of all, let me share my deep sympathy for a very large population of Brazil who suffered during current COVID pandemic. This has been an extremely tragic experience of our generation. We both countries have suffered immensely and is still struggling to come out of this sad experience. But imagine for a moment that India, with just 1/3 of your size in geography and having a population more than 6 times of Brazil, densely populated urban settings like Dharavi in Mumbai, the largest slum of the world, as I know, and believe me that we have so many similar settings throughout India. The government of India and our various state governments, and especially our people, have done a commendable job in our struggle against this dangerous COVID pandemic, originated from Wuhan in China. WHO is warning almost on a daily basis regarding the uncertain future in coming months and years. Lancet has also cautioned all of us and advised serious precautions. India is in a delicate situation at the moment regarding COVID pandemic. Second serological survey by ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, found a significant increase in prevalence among adults at 7.1%. This means so many crores, up from 0.7% detected in first sero survey. The prevalence in urban slums is 15.6%, serious level, underlying the fact that disease burden is more in metros, cities, and towns with high density of population and more economic activities. There is already an alarm that another virus is likely to attack very soon. Bill Gates has recently warned that more people are likely to lose their lives in coming years because of dangerous viruses and pandemics. Let me briefly mention the main cause of such a dangerous pandemic. Last 200 years of industrial development has led to worldwide phenomenon of large migrations, both within the countries and among the countries throughout the world. This has happened in earlier history. In a classic study of last 13,000 years, Guns, Germs, and Steel, the fates of human societies, Jared Diamond has concluded that societies develop differently on different continents because of differences in continental environments, not in human biology. Moving beyond COVID pandemics, the world is faced with an unprecedented crisis, which we all are aware as climate change. Only future will tell us the scale of this impending catastrophe. Scientists have observed that rise in sea levels may destabilize millions of people in almost all parts of the world. Widespread displacements will lead to huge migrations that will upset the whole world and current development process. In fact, the crisis is already upon us. It is in this background that Mahatma Gandhi becomes most relevant for the immediate future, especially for young generation. A lot has been said and written about Mahatma Gandhi throughout the world. United Nations had decided to observe his birthday, 2nd October, as Non-Violence Day or Ahimsa Divas. Next speaker, Rajani Bakshi, is better qualified to speak in this matter, as she has written extensively on Ahimsa. I would take few minutes to remember this great man who was both a saint and a crusader. Albert Einstein rightly summed up, generations to come, it may be, will scarcely believe that such a one as this, ever in flesh and blood, walked upon this earth. In a biography published by National Book Trust of India, his biographer, Krishna Kripalani, says, when he was born, the British rule had been firmly established in India. When he died, it was a free nation. The story of this miracle is also the story of Gandhi's life. Gandhi lived, suffered, and died for his people. He showed a way of life which may one day provide an alternative to both a regimented and acquisitive society. He was essentially a moral force. Of course, he did not start this long struggle. He was preceded and accompanied by many freedom fighters, including his opponents. 10 years before his death, Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore wrote, perhaps he will not succeed. Perhaps he will fail as the Buddha failed, as the Christ failed, to wean man from their iniquities. He will always be remembered as one who made his life a lesson for all ages to come. In his foreword for the Economy of Permanence by Dr. J.C. Kumarappa, Gandhi wrote in 1945, we shall arrive at the economy of permanence in the place of that of the fleeting nature we see around us at present. He, Dr. Kumarappa, tackles the question, shall the body trump over and stifle the soul, or shall the latter trump over and express itself through a perishable body, which, with its few wants, healthily satisfied, will be free to subserve the end of the imperishable soul. This is plain living and high thinking, says Gandhi in this foreword. Gandhi took a resolve to revive household textile industry, and Khadi movement became a torchbearer of freedom movement. I got an opportunity to lead this process for a few years and proud to claim that my mother and whole family was a partner in this movement of revival of Khadi. The basic hypothesis of Gandhian thought has been that our mother has enough to fulfill needs of all, as Professor Norman has rightly pointed out, but not the greed of a few. This need versus greed approach is the fulcrum of Gandhian thought. Gandhian legacy has been taken forward by reputed thought leaders like Kumarappa, JP, Lohia, and Dindayal Upadhyay. But same is not the case with post-independence political leadership of the country, who have been under strong influence of Western powers. Foreign lobbies have serious interference in political process and corporate affairs. Unfortunately, this trend started at the very beginning of transfer of power in 1947, got reflected in process of formulation of constitution, and continued so far in corridors of power, mainly through powerful bureaucracy and various embassies. I would be pleasantly surprised if your experiences in Brazil are different, and if really so, would certainly like to learn from Brazil. Let me conclude my address by some comments related to sustainable development strategy. Having pursued MDG, Millennium Development Goals, in first decade of this century, it was a very sensible UN decision to set focus upon sustainable development goals. In view of Gandhian thought, we need to consider objectives and goals of sustainable development. All 17 goals are interdependent. I would advise following steps to move forward in the direction of SDGs. First, to ensure fulfillment of basic needs of all. To fulfillment of basic needs of all on a priority basis, providing sustained gainful employment is the best guarantee to ensure the basics. Two, any democratic governance has to ensure that inequalities and disparities never cross well-defined limits. Vulgar display of luxuries has to be banned without any compromise. Three, restore command and control of local communities in day-to-day governance of commons. 4, any democratic governance has to ensure that inequalities and disparities never cross well-defined limits. Vulgar display of luxuries has to be banned without any compromise. 4, conservation and promotion of natural resources to ensure continuity for future generations. 5, as UN report, our common future, that is Brundtland report, declared 5 decades back, there are limits of growth on our planet Earth. No country should be allowed to back out from climate agreements, and this has to be without exception. A senior statesman of India, Dr. M.M. Joshi, has emphasized time and again that there can't be sustainable development without sustainable consumption. He has suggested a well thought out plan of action and route map in this direction. World can't afford the lifestyle of America and Europe anymore. Let Asia and Africa live on their terms and parameters. A reputed Gandhian thinker, late Dharampal, was frankly of the opinion that 1% population can't be permitted to maneuver governance by sheer manipulations. They should be isolated from the mainstream. Let them choose their islands to live in luxuries, but not be allowed to pollute the whole system. Let the vast majority of our common masses live in peace on their terms. Prime Minister of India has given a rousing call for self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat, at all levels. There is a positive response from the people. Also, there is another signal of hope for a good future from Ayodhya. The nation is celebrating the spirit and concept of Ram Rajya, that is divine rule of Lord Rama, so close to the heart of Mahatma Gandhi. This would be a fitting tribute to the memory of Mahatma Gandhi by a grateful nation. Mahatma Gandhi shows the way forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your words, Dr. Sharma. It gave me some insights related to what you just talked about. The power of the people to change the world, right? And the power of the leadership, and what are our own responsibilities on that, because we always try to blame the others, our companies or the governments, but we are our own change, so we need to understand that in some point. And I think Gandhi was a really great inspiration for that, of a leadership to move to the change. To hear more about Gandhi perspective, I would like to invite Ranjini Bakshi, member of the executive committee of the Gandhi Smith and Dasha Summit, an autonomous body under the Ministry of Culture. Rajni, could you please give us some words related to that?
Professor, and I would like to begin by thanking the ICCR Sao Paulo, and my regards to the ambassador, the honorable ambassador, and all the team there in Brazil. Yeah, so thank you. Can we just display the picture? I want to start by sharing with you a image, which is the cover page of the UNEP's manual for policymakers on sustainable infrastructure and sustainable consumption. Maybe we can get the image back in a little bit. This is an image which, yes, here we are. Well, we lost it. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's a picture. This is a cover picture which shows an Indian woman somewhere in the northeast spinning on a charkha. And I found the use of this picture on a sustainable infrastructure and consumption and production. There you are. So as you see, firstly, all the material she is using is renewable, including the fact that her energy is her own bodily energy. She is not using any electricity. It's possible that the house in which she's sitting or the workshop in which she's sitting is also made entirely of organic and renewable materials. And so I can understand why the creators of this manual felt so attracted to carry this picture on the front page. But at the same time, it remains deeply ironic. And it's ironic because this picture, this old woman with her charkha making probably a very modest livelihood, spinning handloom cloth, which you can see displayed in the background, which she then sells. Today, for the overwhelming majority of people in the world, this would be a picture representing backwardness. Because we think the general impression now is that what is high tech is progress, and this lady with her charkha represents what we want to leave behind. But the irony is, and I think that's what the UNEP was suggesting by picking this picture for a very important sustainable development goal. As you know, sustainable consumption and production is one of the SDGs. We can now do without the picture. Thank you so much. Now, my point is that what is the crux of the SDGs, and what today do we generally think about when we say sustainable development? And in fact, that is very succinctly conveyed inside this document, which I just showed you the cover of. It says 7 billion dreams, one planet, consume with care. Now, I think these are terms that have a wide acceptance today. Yes, even though there is still frenetic quality of consumption, etc., I think few people would disagree that we need to consume with care. The reason why the objective of reordering the arrangements of our material existence in ways that will allow our species to continue to thrive for many more centuries and millennia, the problem there is not that we are not all feeling that we should consume with care, but that we are not able to redefine our notion of progress. And I think that, and I thank Professor Sharma for so succinctly laying the ground. That is where Gandhiji becomes crucial. Perhaps many of you have heard that he spent the last approximately 14 years of his life living in a mud hut called Bapu Kuti. We fondly in India, we call it Bapu Kuti. Kuti is our word for a small dwelling. And it's made entirely of mud and wood and bamboo and a bit of stone. Now, today, anybody, I don't know what it's like in Brazil, but in India, anybody who is still living in a mud and wood and bamboo home will themselves consider themselves to be poor and backward. So how do we, what is the, how do we proceed? How do we redefine progress? Of course, one rather simple and straightforward way, not simple, but it would be very effective, would be if the elites were to change how they live. That's one possibility, but that in itself will not be enough. Because many of the elites during our freedom struggle did change their entire lifestyle to become very, very much followers of Gandhiji's call for simplicity. But that didn't actually change the status consciousness being connected with what you consume and how much you consume. So maybe it is better if we consider what are some of the markers, what are some of the qualities that would really help us move towards a new model of progress. Because what I want to emphasize here is that the choice is not between a bamboo hut and a steel and chrome and glass skyscraper. That is often how it is seen, and I suggest to you that that's a very misleading way of posing the choice or the contrast that we have to deal with. Because these are only symptoms. The steel and the glass is as much a surface symptom as the mud and the bamboo. The essential issues that I think Gandhiji helps us to understand is that is true progress, which enables comfort with simplicity rather than comfort with complication. And really the opposite of simplicity is for me complication, not necessarily ostentation. I mean, of course, ostentation is also an opposite of simplicity, but that again tends to, create a misleading idea that somehow to be simple is to deny yourself. That's not the model of simplicity that I'm considering here. So one is that how can we have comfort with simplicity rather than complication? Two, that how do we create systems which help us to feel more in command, both of our own passions and the world around us? Not command in the sense of dominating over others, but feeling a greater sense of agency, so that you don't feel helpless, you don't feel constantly done on to by circumstances, by external forces, which, for example, is today, I'm told, the fate of a large volume of the young people who are in the consuming class, because no matter how much they are able to consume, I'm told by people who follow these trends that they always feel they don't have enough because they are comparing it with somebody else's consumption, what somebody else has. And that kind of comparative existence gives you a sense of powerlessness, which then feeds unhappiness and eventually perhaps even depression. So the last element in this, what would be true progress, is that which helps us to grow psychologically and morally strong. And I don't mean this in any saintly way. See, this is one of the great misfortunes of the last 70 years, that because Gandhiji was indeed a great soul, but the legacy has been often projected in such a way that average person, the average ordinary person, feels, oh, that was only because he was a Mahanatma, a saintly person. I cannot or should not even try to do any of these things. But actually, everyday life, if we mean to live it with some degree of stability and happiness, actually depends on these things. Because see, the opposite of these 3 points, the simplicity with comfort, that which grows our sense of agency and enables us to be psychologically and morally stronger, these are all things that help us to withstand the pressures of what Gandhiji called the mad race, which is this constant rush, this constant race to have more, to own more, to consume more, and actually just also to have more power. And in that context, I'm really glad that Professor Sharma brought up the issue of Ram Rajya, because Gandhiji's Ram Rajya is not actually about a mythical ruler who lived in a place called Ayodhya in North India. Gandhiji's notion of Ram Rajya is precisely that every person feels empowered to explore their more higher mental and moral faculties. Or what the Buddhists so beautifully say, the Buddhists describe all that pulls us down as afflictive emotions. So greed, envy, a kind of jealousy, aggression towards others, all these the Buddhists call afflictive emotions. And as far as I have understood it, Gandhiji's notion of Ram Rajya is a atmosphere, it is a setting, it's a kind of a pervasive mindset in which the very average, the very ordinary person feels empowered to overcome their afflictive emotions and grow their positive self. So to come back to the question of sustainable development, as something that is a big issue for the world, and in closing, I would say that today the crux of the matter is whether we can succeed in redefining growth. And I make to you just 2 submissions in that regard. One is that we look seriously at an idea that is gathering some momentum across the world. It is called degrowth, and it's deliberately posed that way because they want to attract attention. So they call it a bomb word. Because yes, and they're not in denial that yes, you need certain types of growth in order for everyone to have food and shelter and clothing. But their point is that true growth is that which actually increases well-being. So the Indian term for degrowth is sarvodaya, which literally means uplift of all. And the Latin American word for degrowth is buen vivir. The African word for degrowth is ubuntu, which means basically that you are, therefore I am, and it conveys mutuality and interdependence and cooperation. So one is that we must redefine what we mean by growth. And I think it's happening in different ways across the world. A lot of that excitement is in Latin America, where the rights of nature are being recognized in legal terms. and actual regeneration of nature is given more importance. And lastly, one macro idea for how this could move forward, and then really the SDGs would have some hope of being realized, not just in terms of numbers, but in spirit, is that if we were to either abolish or completely reorient the notion of gross domestic product, GDP. Unless that is done, as long as GDP and the social development index, the human development index and green accounting, all these remain separate measures, I'm afraid the GDP will always have more importance. Governments, private companies, even the multilateral agencies, the emphasis will always go to the money-based measure. That's all it is. GDP is nothing but an account of the amount of money and goods that have changed hands. So therefore, all the medical expense now on Corona and COVID-19 is great for GDP. So I would close simply by saying that in one sentence, actual well-being, its measures, and that which expands the very average ordinary person's sense of agency, their sense of being able to explore and express their initiative, their entrepreneurship, their creativity. This is what would be true sustainable development in a Gandhian frame. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for your words. The initial image that you showed was really inspiring, especially because addressed to policymakers, and we're now closing to the local elections. So this reminds us that we need systematic change to address the sustainable development goals. I really liked the context of redefine growth, and I would add that we need to redefine progress too. We need to change what we understand as prosperity and success. You mentioned different ways to understand that in different cultures. And as you mentioned, Gandhi calls for simplicity, and we need to understand that what means simplicity too. I think this passes for some kind of humanization of the systems. I really like that talk that says that we need to keep the high tech. Of course, the technology helps us to be here now, for example, but we have to work for a transition to high touch again. So we need to reconnect with our own humanity, with the people, and to understand our role in the society and how do we interact with different humans and with the nature, with the planet. So we have to balance that. So I would like to hear now from Leonardo, Brazilian too. So Leonardo is an educator and social activist and a journalist. So please, Leonardo, could you please tell us some words related to sustainable development and Gandhi perspective?
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here. So good morning, Gustavo. My name is Leandro Shoas. I have an organization in Rio de Janeiro that is called Shanti Brazil Institute, that it's based on Gandhian ideas. So to promote Gandhian thought. So it's a very pleasure for me to be here with you. I would like to greet everybody and thank you for the invitation to be here. And most of the words that I prepared to say today, you have already talked in the speeches that you just made. But basically, what I would like to say is that Gandhi was a visionary when he talked about environmental issues. He was a visionary. He was ahead of his time. So many of the things that he was saying 100 years ago, people were saying now that it's very, very important. You were just saying about the concepts of progress, the concepts of development, that we must review everything, especially now. The world is living a climate collapse. Everything is collapsing. I was just watching on TV this morning, the glaciers were melting in Antarctica. So we are living a very strong collapse in our environments. And this simplicity that you were saying a few minutes ago, it's urgent. It's not only something that we must think about. It's urgent. We must start to live simply right now. It's very famous, the quote by Gandhi when he said, live simply so others may simply live. So this explains everything. We must have a simple life. Today, there is the concept of voluntary simplicity. This concept is it's in tune with what Gandhi was saying 100 years ago. We need to live simply. Here in South America, in the indigenous people of Bolivia and Peru use the expression bien vivir. In their language is summa camana. Professor Rajni mentioned that some minutes ago. So it's the same reasoning. So most of the communities of the past were saying the same thing. We must live together. We must live simply our lives, not demanding too many growing from the planet. We have only one planet, and this planet have no resources for everything. So Gandhi was saying also, he had the word Swadeshi, that means local economy, local agriculture, local, eat locally, buy locally. So this concept of Swadeshi is urgent today. We must develop our countries, our local places using this concept. In Brazil, we use the concept of solidarity economy. We have an intellectual in Brazil that used this, is very famous for spreading this concept in the country. Solidarity economy is the same of Swadeshi. So eat locally, plant the agriculture locally, so people could live together in that place without transport food and everything, clothes from one part of the country to another part of the country, and sometimes to another country. So this concept of Swadeshi is to be lived urgently. So the message of Mahatma Gandhi, of Swadesh, of Sarvodaya, that Professor Rajani mentioned, is in Europe they use the concept of the growth is very urgent, because we are demanding, Brazilians demand the ecological footprint of Brazil is 3 planets. So we are demanding the 3 planets. You have only one. So it will be a collapse, and our species will be the first to be extincted if we stay like that. So also another thing that we must think about is the way we see nature. Mahatma Gandhi had a holistic view of nature. He used to see nature as something not to be exploited. He used to see nature as part of our family. So this is in tune with everything that we are saying today. We have to live in harmony with the plants, with the animals. So look at what is happening now in Pantanal, in the rainforest. So Brazil and the whole world must listen to what Gandhi was saying, and not only Gandhi, but everybody that came after him with the same ideas. It's very obvious what he was saying. Maybe 100 years ago, people were not able to understand what he was saying, but today it's very clear. So he was a man ahead of his time. And we must to live in harmony with nature. We must to see nature not only as a source of what we need to live. It's our family. And we have to see like that. And it's not a new idea. It's a very old idea, because the whole mankind used this idea in the whole history. Only in the last 300 years that we changed our minds, and we are getting crazy. This society is not possible. When a journalist asked Gandhi what he think about the Western society, he said it could be a good idea. That's what he answered. It could be a good idea. It's a very wise answer, because this Western society does not work. And unfortunately, even the Eastern part of the world is reproducing the Western way of life, demanding the planet more than the planet can give us back. Another environmental idea of Gandhi that is useful for us to think about now is the natural medicine. It's very important now, because we are living this pandemic of coronavirus. So it's very important for us now to think about natural medicine, about how to use Ayurveda or many other traditional ways of healing to have our body more prepared to face these health problems. So Gandhi was making experiences of herbs, of many things. He has a book, Key to Health, it's the name of the book, where he explains his ideas about how to use medicine, herbs, and milk and everything to have a more healthier body, to be prepared for this kind of thing. So this is another idea that has to do with the moment that the world is living right now. Of course, we don't have the solution for the coronavirus in herbs, of course not, but it's very useful. And we have in the world right now very many laboratories that are just seeing this moment as an opportunity to raise money, and I am a little afraid of that. What kind of vaccine that they are producing right now? So this is another thinking, another part of the Gandhian thought that I would like to share with you. That comes from Mahatma Gandhi. So many of the concepts that we are studying today to face this climate collapse Gandhi was talking about that 100 years ago. I said about Swadesh, voluntary simplicity, solidarity economy, bioconstruction. Professor Rajni said about the mud where Gandhi used to live. So to build our house, it's important to use local material to build our house, not to demand too much from the planet. So bioconstruction is also another thing that is totally in tune with the words of Mahatma Gandhi. So everything that the environment issues of today, Gandhi was saying the same thing 100 years ago, a century ago. So we have to celebrate this man that was a visionary, was ahead of his time, and study again what he was saying. And many people that are saying the same thing in the world right now, especially the scientists. Okay, so again, I thank you for this opportunity to be here. I thank you for this invitation, and I hope I can contribute to our debate today.
There we go. Thanks, Leandro. It's really good to know more about your project and what you're doing here in Brazil. I really like the concept of buy local and solidarity economy. And it was something that we are seeing a lot in this pandemic moment, actually, in the cities. And perhaps will be something that is here to stay. I hope so. This is a time of reflection, as you mentioned, right? We have to see nature as part of our own family. We are part of the nature. We are part of the ecosystem. We have to understand that and be part of that. So to understand that our own actions have impacts in the nature and the environment, in the cities and where we live, etc. And talking about ecosystem and collaboration, I would like to invite Nirja Matu to talk about her perspective. Nirja is a good friend and partner in different projects of ISAE, especially in the interaction between countries and sharing knowledge. So Nirja, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gustavo. And really honored and my pleasure to be a part of this event. I really want to thank Ambassador Suresh Reddy ji, Pre-Consul General Amit Mishra ji, President Norman Aruda, as well as Pujaji Kaushik, as well as Professor Gustavo. I will be sharing my presentation on this event, wherein I want to talk about two aspects. One is the Gandhian philosophy and the SDG goals, which are so similar. And I have tried to align these SDG goals in Gandhian philosophy. And the second part of this, my presentation would talk about those 5 planets, which is the broad agenda of transforming our world, and which Gandhi again spoke about in all those 5 Ps, and how it has been taken over by some of our social entrepreneurs in their intervention and in their best practices in order to meet the need of the people. These social entrepreneurs who have made an attempt with their interventions are globally and nationally recognized for their effort to see how these needs are met to the grassroots level of the people, which Gandhi always propagated. Let me share my screen. Are you able to see my screen, Gustavo? Gustavo, are you able to see my screen presentation?
Yes, Nirja ji, we can see the presentation.
Okay. So, let me start with Gandhian philosophy, Ahimsa, Satyagraha, Sarvodaya, Swadeshi, and Swaraj, as we've already shared this by my co-panel members. These 17 goals, which were propagated and advocated and presented in 2015, we can see that each and every goal has the reflection of Gandhian principle, philosophy, ideology, as well as some of those thoughts which were so relevant in these SDG goals. I've tried to align these goals in these 5 philosophy: Ahimsa, Swaraj, Swadeshi, Sarvodaya, and Satyagraha. In order to transform the world, these 17 goals were adopted to have achieved this broad agenda Planet, people, peace, prosperity, and partnership. Gandhiji and forward thinking. The SDGs are distinguished by their emphasis on sustainability. Gandhiji also advocated sustainability. He said, what we do today is our future. His inspirational word help us understand his forward thinking and relevance. Poverty is the worst form of violence. Natural resources are loan given to us by our next generation. The day we'll be able to say that our women are safe on the street at night, that is the day we have achieved gender equality. We must tolerate others' thought. If you really believe that your thoughts are better than the other's peace, Earth provides enough to satisfy everyone's need, but not everyone's need. This is the 5 P's in action that I just shared some time back. And this is something that I'm going to talk about, given some illustrations of those examples, these interventions which have been best practices in India and abroad. Planet, Gandhi considered the exploitation of natural resources, industrialization versus environmental, pollution caused by industrial plants is hazardous. Urbanization eventually results in large-scale migration from villages, the effective rise in population, problem waste management and employment, rising of slum challenges the sustainability of the society, which Gandhi always promoted. I want to share an example of Sulabh Shauchalaya. Mr. Bindeshwar Pathak, a Gandhian, started Sulabh Shauchalaya. It's a service, it's a toilet and sanitation services, which he started in 1970. It works in the field of human rights, environmental sanitation, non-conventional source of energy, waste management, and social reforms through education. The earlier speaker did mention about the biogas. He also mentioned about the environmental conscious that we all need to have. And this is what Bindeshwar Pathak has started in this whole twin pit composting. This is something which can be done successfully and sustainability by the individuals, and is a simple to implement. Biogas generated can be used for local purposes, saves water and prevents pollution. This is one of the initiatives which is very popular in the rural areas. Of course, it's also been very, very popular in urban, but this can be only done and practiced in a rural area where there is more space. It's also populated in Bangladesh and Nepal. Whereas people are concerned, Gandhi believed educating and skilling people were significant drivers of change. For him, education is a lifetime phenomenon. Nahi talim. It's an approach to the total personality development of mind, body, and spirit. Learning should be linked with vocational training. The recent National Education Policy 2020 also focuses on the principle of Gandhiji, where they have really trying to bring vocational training as a part of the curriculum in the school. Indifferent to caste, religion, and gender, he believed safety and dignity. His philosophy of survival talks about equality and social justice. He was a staunch opponent of racial discrimination and inequality amongst people. I want to talk about Seva over here. Self-Employed Women's Association, an organization working since 1972, has 1.6 million women members of the organization. Gandhian civil rights leader Ela Bhatt started Seva. It promotes the right of low-income, independently employed female workers. Seva is framed around the goal of full employment in which a woman secures for her family income, food, health care, childcare, and shelter. Seva's organizing model brings together women across caste and class who share experiences of labor exploitation. Seva serves as a model for successful bottom-up democratic organization as propagated by Mahatma Gandhi. Prosperity. Egalitarian society deeply rooted in values. The idea of Sarvodaya, Gandhi stressed on the importance of needs rather than want. Ethics more important than economic growth. Rural employment and small-scale industry as a tool for eradicating poverty. Localizing the development. Recently have started this Vocal for Local, Make in India are some of the government initiatives. Think local and act global. That is the mantra. Create broader employment with decentralized work. I want to share the example of Lijjat Papat, Shri Mahila Griha Udyog Lijjat Papat, organization working for giving livelihood to approximately 45,000 women who are uneducated and unskilled. Jaganlal Parekh, guide to the founder, was a true Gandhian and gave them the initial money. Started in 1959 by 7 women in Mumbai with a seed capital of only rupees 80. It had an annual turnover of more than rupees 800 crores, 8 billion in 2018. It accepts all working members as the owners and an equal partaker in both profit and loss. Sarvodaya. Pan-India ventures in 82 branches and exposed to 15 countries. Excellent quality of product and consistency in taste, despite the expansion to 7 states. home-based, strong business processes, ethics, values, equity, and governance are the key factors of legit to be very profitable, to be a sustainable model, and for the last 50 years doing so well with so many women as members. Peace, social justice and equality. Non-violence, violence is any form breeds greater violence. Exploitation and harmful for the economy and society. Social inclusion, overcoming social stigma. Multi-dimensional poverty, deprivation of rights, vocational disadvantage, leaving no one behind is something what SDG also promotes. I want to talk about Anand One, smart village created by staunch Gandhian Baba Amte in 1949. Self-contained ashram based on Gandhian philosophy, home for leprosy-treated people, a residence which is self-sufficient in terms of basic subsistence. In addition, the ashram has various home-based small-scale industry units, technical wing run by the resident that generate income to cover additional requirements. Environmentally aware community to practice energy utilization, waste recycling, and minimizing use of natural resources. Anandvan has 2 hospitals, a college, an orphanage, a school for the blind and deaf. 3,000 leprosy-treated people are running this ashram so well, a place to be really looked upon. Partnership. Gandhi's propagation for democracy in Satyagraha is a peaceful process for small positive changes to attain transformational change in the long term. Collaboration versus competition, selfless versus self-centered, working up the value chain to foster minimum, mindful processes and innovative alternatives. Responsibility and accountability of every stakeholder makes every element conscious at their best. It also makes partnership transparent, trusting and long-term. Sustainable consumption and sustainable production is something which we have been talking about even in the earlier talk. I want to share about Kudum Shri, the Kerala State Poverty Eradication Mission, who started this whole project of Kudum Shri. Democratic decentralization, power to local self-governance from municipality, urban to panchayat, rural, village levels. This was something which Gandhiji always propagated to have the local self-governance. Power of women's organization. Kudum Shri is tied up to the development initiatives of the local government, be it for social infrastructure, welfare, and is executed by local community of women, making it vast spread. Currently, 5 million women, 300,000 neighborhood groups, inclusive of transgender, disabled, and senior women. Classic example of partnership of government, NABARD, NGO, panchayat, and community. Organization and Gandhism. Efficient versus indulgent economy, ethics in organization, service, seva at the core of every business, taking responsibility and accountability of our actions. Organization with Gandhi, leaders have shown progress for the society, profit for themselves, and long-term sustainability. G.R.D. Tata was an epitome of trusteeship. With service at its core, Tata built a sustainable business benefiting the organization, employees, customers, society, and environment. Trusteeship, Gandhi's idea of trusteeship was rather theological. He considered God as the ultimate owner of all resources and humans were mere trustees. Therefore, it was important for those trustees to give an access amount to the society which could be used for the development of service. The key drivers for social development in terms of responsible corporates, philanthropic and consciousness. Financial backbone should operate from heart and soul. Social entrepreneurs should be bridged between communities and government corporates. Efficient governments should support ethical progress and promote balance in society, economy, and environment. Government initiatives like Mudra Loan, NREG Act, and Swachh Bharat are examples. The greatness of humanity is not in being human, but in being man, as Gandhiji mentioned. Closing lines from Gandhiji. The bold new world has to do away with politics without principle and commerce without morality. Be the change we want to see in the world. Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing so practical way the interaction between Gandhi philosophy and sustainability in your journey. It was really impressive to see the connections between the philosophy and the sustainable development goals. And as I mentioned in the beginning, he was applying sustainability even before the name existed, and 100 years ago, something like this. It's amazing to see, as Leandro said in his presentation, how Gandhi was way ahead of his time, right? Well, we are coming to the end, and I would like to hear from you, our 4 participants, really briefly, in 1 minute perhaps. What do you think that, inspired by Gandhi, the leaders need to have as ability or as a thought to help the world to recover better and stronger, especially now after this pandemic situation? So, Pooja, I would like to ask to have our 4 participants in the screen together with me for this closing remarks. But yeah, I just would like to hear from you, like some final words. What do you think some ability and something the leaders for tomorrow need to have to drive this change that is so necessary, this transition process that is so necessary, and this recovery process? Would like to start? Dr. Manish.
Okay.
I think maybe if everyone turns the mic off, and then just Dr. Manish. There.
I would strongly urge what Rajni Bakshi has said. We need, of course, we urgently need to redefine growth. Redefine infrastructure. A lot of confusion is there among the young minds. How do we proceed actually? The leadership has created a mess by getting into all this, and there is an urgent need for that I would insist.
Thank you, Professor Rajni.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gustavo. I that I would maybe just urge that we need a true leader works for power with other people, not power over. And I think that is the most crucial issue today. And by the way, that is not just a leader as in the head of a state or a head of government. I think what we are seeing with the rise of social media is that many people, because of numbers, the numbers that are attached to their following, have the power to have great influence over other people. But the thing that we all need to ask ourselves is that in any of these leadership positions, am I growing other people's power and their own self-confidence, or am I in any way diminishing it? Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is really great. Everyone can be and have to be protagonist, right? So as we have now social media and we can do things, we can move things forward. So everyone needs to be his own leader and be part of this change. I would like to ask Leandro to come forward.
Again, I thank you for being here. It's a pleasure for me to share this morning with you. And finally, I'd like to invite people to rethink the way we live in every aspect, the way of living of today. We have to redefine every aspect of this way of living and redefine everything. This is basically what we need to do, even to rethink the meaning of growth and to set the basis of a new way of thinking of what growth means. So thank you.
Thank you, Leandro. Nirja.
I thank you, Gustavo. I think we need to take individual responsibility, take onus on our thought, behavior, and action, as well as I think for the ladies, it's not just preaching but practicing also. Be walk the talk, and I think that's what is required. And also empower by empowering your own powers. I think that's very essential because we always feel we are empowering, but actually we are really not empowering. We're really empowering ourselves. We need to take the responsibility and be more conscious of our behavior, thought, and action. Thank you so much.
Great, great. Yeah, we heard about collaboration. We heard about partnership. We heard about protagonism. We heard about rethink. We heard about leadership and transformation. Would like to end with the be the change you want to see in the world, right? And with that said, we'd like to thank you everyone for being here and to interact with us, to give your own knowledge and talks about this. It was a really inspiring morning for sure. Our students, our participants, our guests really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you so much, especially because of the time difference. So my friends in India, I know it's evening now. So good night for you guys. And again, thank you so much. Bye, everyone.